Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I have a Happy Mail card to share with you using a digital stamp from Rachelle Anne Miller. This one is called Astronaut Explorer and I think it's just the cutest digital stamp ever. And I also think it's such a great digital stamp or stamp to use for any occasion actually. I am going to use it for a Happy Meal card, but imagine making a birthday card for a little kid or a bit of an older kid that is really into space and all those things. I think it's so cute. For today's card, I decided to print out the no-line coloring version, which is, in case of digital stamps, a version that doesn't have the black outline, but more of a really soft gray one. Now, the advantage of this is that although it's no-line coloring, this ink, since it's printed, is visible enough to really easily do the coloring. I really love those swirly lines by Rachelle Anne Miller. And in the case of no-line coloring, from time to time, I use a pencil to help me get those swirly lines more pronounced or visible. But in this case, I decided to not do that because I could still see all of them and I was really happy even with the gray outline of them. Now another thing is that I just really love the end result by no-line coloring, also with clear stamps. But if I'm honest, I find it really hard sometimes to see all of the lines. I need to put the stamp next to it sometimes to really see where I have to color what. And it is sometimes fading already before. Well, here that's not the case, so that can be handy if you're trying to get into the no-line coloring and you find it hard to do that with the clear stamps with the specific ink that you have. Then maybe just first trying this out with digital stamps can help you to get into that groove and really get going with the no-line coloring. I also decided to do no-line coloring because it had been a while that I did it, and I really want to get into it more again, also with the clear stamps. I love doing that. I started with that before I ever touched a digital, so I like doing it. But yeah, it can be useful for you. So here I am working my way through my Copic markers to color these images in. I decided to start with like the helmet because I wanted it to be faded and I didn't want to lift up all of the markers that I maybe added afterwards. And although I went over it, I think you can still see it on the skin tone here and then later on for the bird that I sort of have a bluish kind of bluish kind of coloring part of that face or the bird. Okay, so in case you're curious about the combinations, as always, they are listed on my blog post. Really simple. I'm also reusing tons of colors. I'm also using colors that I use all the time. Like the skin tone, this is just my general skin tone combination that works always for me, and that gives me all of the room for the hair tones that I most of the time just pick at random when I start coloring. Now, as you can see here, I kind of largely printed this image on top of what will later on be my A2 size card. I want this moon to be sort of overhanging. I want it to be in the corners. So the most important thing for me to do here is to really make sure that I colored enough. I'm going to frame this up, so I don't need it all, but I don't want any white gaps neither. So I just started with my yellow reds here, yellow red 24, 21, and I ended up with yellow 21. I think this is a really cute combination. I also let myself be inspired to find these combinations by the digital print that Rachelle Anne Miller made with this amazing illustration. And she used some yellows, softer I think, definitely, but I'm not really good in the really soft coloring with Copics, and then some blues, so I went for that while coloring this image. Now, if you're curious about digital stamps, definitely check out all of the inspiration If you ask me about the advantages of digital stamps, it's also that in case you are unsure about coloring yourself with any medium that you have, you can use pencils, markers, paints, inks, anything goes actually. But if you're insecure about that and you have maybe an iPad or a tablet or anything like that, maybe you can color digitally, or maybe you enjoy doing that. And with these stamps, you're unlimited. You can do that as well. And I decided to color this one with my markers. I recently also, well, recently it has been a while, but it has been a while with the move that I used the iPad. But I purchased it after a long time of thinking about purchasing it to do some digital coloring, and I'm getting better at it. But in case you're wondering how to start with digital coloring, Rachelle Anne Miller also made a few videos on her YouTube channel so far concerning the digital process and the digital coloring and how she tackles it. And this image is shown by her how she colors it, which is really cute, and I just am mesmerized by the process. I have lots and lots to learn still. She has an amazing style. But maybe that can help you to develop your own style, or maybe you're just curious about the options of digital coloring. Maybe it's more kind of your style even. So definitely check that out if you want to see how she colors this with her iPad. It was really useful for me as well, and I truly enjoyed it. I can watch her all day. So here for the blue, I'm going to reuse this combination all over and over. I used it in the past. It's when you want really soft but dark enough blue. And then this one is a dream come true. I truly find this is such a lovely color. Even though it's not the lightest, it is really amazing. So I'm going to use that for the clothing, but also for the shoes, a tiny bit on the pants, a bit in between. Yeah, I'm just reusing colors as I always do, and I love that. And I don't need to worry whether the colors will go together or not, and that's just the lovely thing about this. So I really took my time, again, going from darkest to lightest. That's just how I roll. But there are many ways to color with your alcohol marker, so do you. If you prefer going first with your lightest marker and then build up from there, that's perfectly fine. I searched for the way that I preferred coloring, and that was a while that I was just doing all of it, just to be able to color any way that I wanted to. And then afterwards I realized that I just really enjoyed it more coloring from darkest to lightest. So at a certain point I switched to that and I stuck with it, and I'm really glad that I did. But there are some amazing people that do it completely differently, and their results are amazing as well. So you do you. That's just perfect. Okay, so here I am just adding a lighter combination. I first thought doing this, but then the BG70 alone was just not giving enough contrast. Not that I wanted to have a really dark pants here or anything like that, but it truly helped me to just add one marker on top. I'm also trying to have my shadowing every time on the right side of my image. I try to be consistent, but if not, that's not a biggie. As long as I like the end result, that's all that matters. So for the details on the face, I use this Copic Multiliner. There are other black pens, of course, to add them in, but at a certain point you need to add them in. I always find that really daunting. That's the only thing that holds me a bit more from the no-line coloring, because just at a certain point you can mess up. If I do no-line coloring with a clear stamp, I first add the details, making sure that I have a pen that works with the medium that I'm using. But then I'm first adding the details so that I'm sure that I'm not messing up before starting with the coloring. So here again, that same yellow as on the moon, because we can. You can also change it up, of course, but I don't think that's necessarily needed. Like that. And then I'm going to reuse that color again, by the way. I'm going to use it on the sort of color of the helmet. I don't know how it's called. It will be a really specific word that has never been told to me. But, well, here I'm also using markers from the hair. You can use other colors, of course, but I really like showing you as well that although I'm using quite a lot of markers because I have several combinations, that you don't need even more, you know. You can, if you want to, you can change up the colors every time, but you don't need to, and that's important to know. Definitely if you're at the beginning of your marker adventure, depending on what marker, it can be really expensive, and so you can always build up your collection, but you don't necessarily have to have all of them at once, and that's the good thing about this as well. So as you can see here, I left the shoes out and I was really contemplating quite a while what I was going to use. It took me a while, I know, but in the end I ended up using the blue again. So if I'm unsure, I just keep returning to the same combinations because they work. So onto the shoes, I will use the same combination as the main clothing. Is it a dress? Is it a suit? Is it a big sweater? It depends on how you want to look at it, but I'm going to use the same combination here. And I'm just taking my time. It's all about taking your time. I sped this video up quite a bit every time when I'm coloring because otherwise you would be here for hours, and I just don't think that that would be interesting for you to see hours and hours. But if you want to, you can always leave it down below. If you want a real-time coloring, I can add it again. I did it once with a Halloween card last year. If it can be helpful, I really want to do it, and no issue with that. Just let me know. But I think for the main or most of my videos, I think it's just nicer to just see the process, but in a quicker way, to just still have some time to craft maybe. So here as well, when you're doing no line, or even not when you're doing no line, but if you're unsure about, for example, the amount of shadowing, you can always take some pencils on top of your markers and just reinforce some of your shadowing. I'm not going to do that today, but that is definitely an option. So for my frame here, I used the A2 rectangles frames from My Favorite Things. I always use the biggest one. I cut it out of this Pretty and Plaid paper pad from My Favorite Things, and I'm also going to cut my image out with that. This way I have the perfect size, and I have twice the frame, so I can double it up and just inlay my image on top of my card base. So here I'm just making sure that I'm going to double it up using some liquid glue, and then we can take our card base and add everything on top. Oh no, I forgot about the sentiment. Then we can create our sentiment here. So for the sentiment, I decided to go with the Itty Bitty Celebrations, and there are many ways to add this sentiment on top of the card. But since my image was so big, I needed to have a bit of creativity to get this on top. So I decided to bend my stamp along the helmet of the little guy here. I didn't show the whole process. I'm really sorry for that, but you can do a trial and error if you want to. What I do most of the time is I draw with a marker on top of my Misty. I know it's ridiculous, but I put my panel in, then I close the Misty, then I sort of mimic the area where I want to go around with my stamp with a marker that I can still remove from my Misty, of course. Then I open a MISTI, I bend the sentiment around that marked area, and then I have to do a test run on some acetate, and once I'm happy I can go for real on top of my card panel. So that being done, I'm going to adhere everything like that, and then inlaying the panel. Since there are some astronauts here and the helmets and all those things, I decided to add glossy accents on all of the helmets, on the one from the bird, on the astronaut itself, and I just really love the result of the glossy accents. I also think if you're unsure about doing some shadowing in those helmets, leave it and add the glossy accents in the end, and that will also represent that helmet without you needing to color if you're unsure. That can definitely work as well. So I made sure to fill it up completely. Don't forget the bird, and then this card is completely finished. You can add more if you want to, that's always an option. You can add less if you want to, that's always an option. But I hope that you like this end result, and of course that you got inspired. Maybe you want to test it out as well. This adorable Astronaut Explorer from Rachelle Anne Miller. Maybe you want to start on digital coloring. Maybe you want to do some no-line coloring with digital stamps. Anything is possible. As long as you enjoy this video, I'm really happy. Thank you so much for stopping by and taking time to watch this video. I truly appreciate you all being here and supporting me. I want to wish you all an incredible day, and I'll be back soon. Bye!